You look at the ground, whoa!
The hotel felt like it was breathing at some point. It was very disturbing.
Close to a foot of water, and that's why the flooding is going to continue, and we'll watch those water levels recede.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Well, good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Emma Withrow. Hurricane Milton's now in the Atlantic Ocean more than 12 hours after making landfall in Siesta Key, Florida. It was a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 120 miles per hour. At least 4 deaths are blamed on the storm, but that number is likely to rise. Its high winds knocked out power to more than 3 million homes and businesses. There's also significant damage across west central Florida. Rescue teams are out in force this morning for search and rescue for all of those people who are trapped. And of course, the storm surge was a big concern in this storm, but the surge was the worst where the eye made landfall and points south. Here in Sarasota, you can see a car trying to drive through the rising water. It's obviously never a good idea. Tampa didn't get the massive surge that was feared. Instead, water emptied out into the bay. It's called reverse storm surge as Milton's heavy winds pushed the water out of the bay. But south of Tampa, CNN's Anderson Cooper definitely felt the storm's wrath.
It's coming in from kind of the north, I guess, northeast, and the water now is really starting to pour over. If you look at the ground, whoa, okay, that wasn't good. We'll probably go inside shortly, but you can see the amount of water here on the ground. This is water from the Manatee River. It's also water coming from the land as well.
Milton's heavy wind caused severe damage in St. Petersburg, just outside of Tampa. Among the many buildings damaged was Tropicana Field Stadium. It's home to the MLB's Tampa Bay Rays. Powerful 120-mile-per-hour winds ripped off the roof. You can see it on the stadium lights on the inside shining down onto the field there. The stadium was to be used as a 10,000-person base camp for first responders in this storm. Those winds also collapsed a construction crane into a high-rise building in St. Petersburg, scattering debris all over the roadway. You can see there. Officials said the crane was not removed before the storm because lowering them can actually take weeks to happen. Those winds also took up power across the state. More than 3 million homes and businesses are without power this morning. As power poles fell and transformers exploded, it's going to likely take weeks to restore all that power. Of course, our storm chaser Brett Adair was in the middle of the storm. He encountered many areas that were inundated with water as the powerful winds just kept blowing. We asked him to describe what he experienced. Take a listen.
We've dealt with flash flooding, storm surge, wind damage, all of the elements of a major storm that makes landfall in the area. We witnessed numerous power flashes throughout the night and also saw several downed trees, power poles, just debris scattered about, as well as south of there, we had storm surge that impacted portions of the Charlotte Harbor area, as well as Venice Beach, where we saw some structures become inundated.
And then, of course, there were the tornadoes. There were more than 100 tornado warnings in Florida, with at least 19 confirmed touching down. Those twisters destroyed more than 125 homes, mostly mobile homes in senior communities, unfortunately. Hurricanes often spawn tornadoes, although not as many as there were yesterday. This typically happens in the right front quadrant of the storm's outer bands, where there's the most wind and shear and inability. But Dylan Huberman is in Fort Pierce with a look at all of this damage that came across.
Here in the Spanish Lakes Country Club community in unincorporated St. Lucie County near Fort Pierce, you can see all kinds of debris on the ground from the tornadoes that tore through here on Wednesday. And up ahead, you'll see that darker area on the pavement. That is not darker pavement. That is flooding, as we have been talking about leading up to the storm. That's a major concern. That's been a big concern in this neighborhood. You can take a look around as well at this house. Lots of parts of that dangling, some parts of it on the ground. And just as we wanted to remind people, this neighborhood suffered a great tragedy. St. Lucie County Sheriff Keith Pearson did confirm to CBS 12 News that there were multiple fatalities in this neighborhood, though that number has not since been clarified. He just referred to it as multiple casualties. We'll try to learn some more information about that situation.
What we're seeing is just unbelievably sad this morning, just to get kind of a preview and to see how widespread this is. Take a look. I mean, earlier this morning, it was so hard to tell just the extent of all this. Now that the sun's coming up, it is unbelievable. Looks like something out of a movie. We've seen fences, power lines, trees, vehicles, you name it, just kind of smashed and toppled all over yards and streets out here. Now, while we've been outside, we've been talking to people who live in the neighborhood. One of them is this gentleman here, Sammy Main. Sammy, thanks for joining us this morning. How'd you make out last night?
Held together. You know, my house is fine, my family is fine, but my community is hurt right now. So that being said, you know, the acreage is a spot where everybody's gonna come together. I had to drive out just to see what the damage was. But it's, like you said, almost something out of a horror movie, demonic-like.
And for more on where Milton is right now and a look at some of the rainfall totals, let's turn to meteorologists Brian Vandegraff and Eileen Whalen.
Well, just over 12 hours from when it made landfall on the west coast of Florida, now exiting the east coast of Florida. Let's give you the very latest with those winds, 85 miles per hour, gusting to 105. It's going to continue this track where it's going to be moving eastward out to sea, remaining Category 1 at least through this afternoon, passing just to the south of Bermuda as we head through the upcoming weekend. But some of the impacts that were felt across Florida were pretty intense, Eileen.
Yeah, they really were. I mean, let's focus in just on the rain and how much water fell from the sky from Milton. And you can see, I mean, this swath of purple where we had well over 5 inches, and I plotted some of them. I mean, close to a foot of water, and that's why the flooding is going to continue, and we'll watch those water levels recede. But look at all of the storm reports, the tornadoes, the wind, the flooding, 182 local storm reports. So survey crews will be out assessing the damage today and cleaning up, but likely by the end of the season, the name Milton will be retired.
This is a look at at Sarasota, Florida this morning from one of the hundreds of cameras we have across the country. And if we could pull up the video here, I'm not sure if we have it, but there is a boat that's just pushing up against the dock. This is where there was significant storm surge in Sarasota, and there's other damage here too. For more on that situation in Tampa, we're going to turn to our reporter, Darwin Singleton, to give you that.
Every city along the coast now having their own set of problems. Storm surge to the south of us. We've actually had some issues here in the city with a tree falling on a house that was inhabited by 15 people, and the police department had to go in and rescue them. And we want to give you a little taste of what we were seeing last night in the parking lot of our hotel, just 6 miles away from downtown Tampa, inland. We had some really, really strong rain and wind last night. The wind kept blowing, I would say, in excess of 60 miles an hour for hours. Making it very difficult to sleep. We had to try to get a little bit of sleep to get up and do what we're doing now. And the hotel felt like it was breathing at some point. It was very disturbing, and you can imagine what it must have been like to ride out the storm in a building of lesser stature. So there's a lot of cleanup today, a lot of power lines down, still about 3 million people in Florida without power, 500,000 of those here in the Tampa area. A lot to do today, and it will be a while before life gets back to normal, as it had not even restored itself after Helene came through about a week and a half earlier.
Hurricane hunters made one last bumpy flight into Milton's eye yesterday morning. They captured the calm of the eye during the hours of the long flight. Tuesday night, a different crew shows just how much lightning is found inside the storm and that shift there. All the data they collect is used to help forecast and just better understand hurricanes. And this is what Milton looked like on the Gulf of Mexico. The video was taken by a sail drone, which is an unmanned vehicle that collects data from the ocean surface. At that time on Wednesday, it measured waves as high as 26 feet and winds gusting to 77 miles per hour. For all the latest, most up-to-date information on Milton, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search up the National Desk. You can find all of that information there. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll look back at the 1921 hurricane that made a direct hit on Tampa. And we'll find out how climate change can impact fall foliage.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. We have a seasonably cool air mass settling in the Northeast today. Highs, they're going to struggle to get out of the 50s. A few spots may nudge 60 degrees. It's a mostly sunny start. Notice a few more clouds in northern New England during the afternoon. We're brightest south. And again, temperatures are going to stay seasonably cool. We'll get a little bit of a boost in temperatures on Friday. Look for a lot of sunshine. It's breezy with a northwest wind, with temperatures rebounding back into the 60s. Enjoy.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. It's as quiet as it gets for our weather pattern here. As we move into your Thursday night, it's going to chill down, and into Friday, it'll start to warm back up again, but it's really going to be fairly cool to end your Thursday afternoon. Mid-60s for highs, 50s into the mountains, and again, it'll be overnight lows in the 40s to even 30s, but Friday looks to be a little bit warmer as we get to up near 70 degrees. The weekend, upper 70s.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
So Tampa was actually spared the worst of Milton. The city now hasn't taken a direct hit from a hurricane in more than 100 years. Meteorologist Emily Gracie looks back at that storm and its impact on the region.
On October 25, 1921, a Category 3 hurricane with winds reaching 120 miles per hour made landfall near Tarpon Springs, Florida. It formed off the coast of Mexico and passed by the Yucatan Peninsula before slamming into the west coast of Florida with a massive 11-foot storm surge. The damage was catastrophic. Bridges and railroads were washed away, thousands of homes and buildings were destroyed, and agriculture lands flooded with salt water. The economic toll reached $10 million, equivalent to about $150 million today. This cyclone was the first major hurricane to strike the area in more than 70 years. Without the modern tools that help us monitor hurricane movement today, forecasting this event was extremely difficult. While at least 8 lives were lost, this number was relatively low compared to previous hurricanes of similar magnitude, perhaps because of new cable and radio capabilities. The Tampa Historical notes that before the storm made landfall, the Associated Press relayed reports from Washington, D.C.'s Weather Bureau, alerting the public that a massive storm was approaching. This early notice system was revolutionary for its time and likely saved many lives. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Emily Gracie.
The National Weather Service and NOAA are working to simplify alerts when weather turns threatening. Jordan Barr gives a closer look at some of those changes.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service are continuing their efforts to simplify how the public is informed about dangerous weather conditions. NOAA is consolidating some of its temperature advisories to reduce the number of watches or warnings sent to the general public. As a result, wind chill and extreme cold watches and warnings will now only be called extreme cold watches and warnings. Wind chill advisories will be renamed cold weather advisories, and excessive heat watches and warnings will become extreme heat watches and warnings. NOAA has also been reformatting the language of its products, shifting most long-duration advisories to a more bulleted format concerning details of what, where, and when. Over the past decade, NOAA has been working to simplify its watch, warning, and advisory system through its hazard simplification project. Public surveys, as well as studies done with emergency officials, show that the general terms watch and warning were periodically confused with each other. Those surveys also showed feedback for reducing the number of advisories and simplifying the details of those products. Now, NOAA's hazard simplification project is still in its repair phase. There's a revamp phase set for a few years in the future, but NOAA still needs time for public outreach as well as various adjustments and development. That phase is scheduled to start after 2026. I'm Jordan Barr reporting.
So as the vibrant colors of fall foliage emerge and the aroma of pumpkin spice fills the air, many are dealing with an unexpected foe, fall allergies of all things. Despite the common belief that allergy season peaks in the spring, the cooler autumn months actually bring their own challenges. So meteorologist Lexi Horvath is going to explain.
Allergist Jessica Van Mason from the Chattanooga Allergy Clinic has already seen an uptick in patients this fall season.
A lot of people are coming in here triggered with acute sinus and nasal symptoms.
But why?
When we're pollen allergic, in the spring, it's usually from tree pollen. But in the fall, it's usually from weed pollens or mold spores.
As leaves collect on the ground and rain falls, that makes the perfect conditions for the allergen mold.
People with allergies or allergic asthma can definitely be triggered by ragweed. That's the big pollen that's prevalent in our area this time of year.
According to the CDC, ragweed produces 1 billion grains per season. Adding that pollen from flowering plants, trees, and grasses are the primary causes of fall allergies. Back in 2021, about 26% of adults and 19% of children were diagnosed with seasonal allergic rhinitis, often called hay fever, according to the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America.
We see young children that are affected by their allergies, all the way up to older individuals that are affected.
Reminding residents if you've been sneezing, have itchy eyes, stuffy or runny nose, sore throat, cough, or congestion.
We can do breathing tests to check to see if it looks like you might have asthma. We can also do allergy tests to see if there's something in the environment, whether that's an indoor allergen or an outdoor allergen, that's triggering your respiratory symptoms.
Sunlight, temperature, and precipitation, or lack thereof it, all play a role in the leaves changing color in the fall. But one question people are asking more and more is, does climate change impact fall foliage? Well, meteorologist Allison Gutlerber spoke with some experts to try to find out the answer to that question.
As far as we know now, from a few species that have been well studied, the red color, which is chemically called anthocyanin, is produced in greater quantity and more vibrantly, in greater quantity per cell when it's cold.
Cooler nights in the fall will enhance the red color, while warmer nights can produce dull leaves. I spoke with Erica Fleischman, the director of the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute at OSU.
As temperatures, especially during autumn nights, become warmer, the beginning of leaf drop season often is delayed. So you may just have a later start to what we think of as fall in terms of the change in colors as a result of that warming. So temperature is one of many things that affects fall colors. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is it's no one thing operating in isolation.
Chances are you've been to or probably heard about caverns, maybe even taken to see them during a school trip or weekend getaway. But there's something unique about the Texas caverns in San Antonio. So meteorologist Joe DiCarlo explains why.
If you have 5-10 acres of land somewhere in central Texas, you probably have a cave on your property you just haven't discovered yet. They say there's 10,000 they haven't found yet, and that's just in, I believe, Bexar and Kendall County alone.
Why do we have so many caves here? The answer, limestone.
Limestone will be dissolved by acidic water, and rainwater, when it falls on the ground, it picks up carbon dioxide, makes a weak carbonic acid that, as it goes down through the cracks in the limestone, it will dissolve the rock.
Caves in our area were formed millions of years ago, and more caves continue to be formed through water. Cascade is the wettest show cave in the state of Texas, and we set out to explore.
We're here at Cascade Caverns. We're going to get a closer look at the cave up close and personal. Let's go.
Below the surface, there's plenty of amazing features, from bats to prehistoric animals.
This is a mastodon shin bone. Mastodon is basically like a smaller version of the woolly mammoth.
The main feature of this cave, water that continuously builds the cave.
The cave's already overgrown the walls they built just about 70 years ago. Normally, this doesn't happen for over 100 years in other cave systems.
So it's quick.
One of the big things we have to do after floods is make sure that debris and stuff isn't going to get clinging on so that we can still let the water drip. Water can't drip, this cave can't grow anymore.
But the most amazing thing is the peace and serenity caves offer.
The only thing you have when you're down inside there is what's around you and the people around you. And it gives you this moment to just be underground and take in this beautiful natural thing.
A natural thing for everyone to enjoy.
And time now for a short break, but first we're going to take to the skies above Michigan.
Well, a very good Thursday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. 90 in Lincoln today. Temperature-wise, we're going to be cool closer to the Great Lakes, but sunshine across most of the Midwest for the day today. And as we head into the day tomorrow, temperatures still staying near and above normal for most of the Midwest. And then got a little bit of rain, maybe trying to sneak its way in from the north there Saturday, but most of us still dry.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. What a wonderful, cool morning it is, all the way from Amarillo, back over into Little Rock into the 50s and 60s elsewhere across the region. Even down to Brownsville, we're at about 66 degrees. Not much happening today, just a lot of dry air coming around the system sitting here. So that means not much in the rain category, but in that dry air, we'll warm back up to summer levels. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a happy Thursday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. West Coast continuing to cool down, at least in the city by the bay. The triple digits of earlier in the week are gone, and we're back to a cool and foggy 66 degrees there in the center of the bay. 86 out of Salt Lake, still triple-digit heat back for Phoenix, and that's the current weather maker, that big ridge of high pressure hanging tough in the desert Southwest. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Rural fires can have major impacts on farmers, and new research suggests that some of those impacts can actually last for years. So Jack Bartlett has more on this.
We've had some cases where people have been using fire retardant fertilizers such as ammonium phosphate or polyphosphate that are able to be sprayed in an area or put around. Give a little bit, kind of like having a fire retardant that you put on a house to try to keep the embers from getting on it.
Whitney also said that water infiltration systems can be damaged by these fires and are actively researching how this happens and ways to prevent it from causing further issues.
So it's one of those that can continue on because you're affecting the water holding capacity, the water infiltration in fields. And there's something about the wildfire that does something to the soil. It's something we're still studying. We've tried to look at the microbiology part of it, but we're not exactly sure. It's kind of like a shake and bake effect where it kind of changes a little bit of some of the soil structure that's there on that surface. And so we think there's some impacts that go well beyond just the year of the fire.
So before we go, we're going to take a quick look at the latest on Hurricane Milton. The storm's now in the Atlantic Ocean after battering Florida all night. Rescue crews are out this morning looking for survivors, and cleanup efforts are now also underway. We're going to stay on top of the story all day, so make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels. But until then, we'll see you back here tomorrow.